I'm part of Group 1. Today we're going to be presenting Bridging the Gap, Omaha and our disabled homeless population. Okay, so years ago I was working at Nebraska Medicine, and I got out of work and I was walking to the included parking garage, and I noticed that right underneath the bus stop bench there was a man who was kind of half curled up, and his body, half of it was like a cast, like one of those immobile casts that you would get in a hospital. So I was like, oh, are you okay? It was the middle of summer, you could see the sun was hitting his face, and he was very uncomfortable. So I was like, are you okay? Is anything going on? What's happening? And he described to me that he resided underneath a bridge in Omaha, and somebody in the night had intentionally hit him and shattered half of his body. Someone found him in the morning. He laid there for quite a while, brought him to the emergency department where they fixed his immediate wounds and then discharged him. But he had nowhere to go. Obviously, he couldn't move, he couldn't get onto the bus. Security solution was to bring him to the bus stop and leave him there without any access to any sort of resources to leave. And he had been there for several hours, so this is a very busy area. Everybody had kind of passed him, and so I was one of the first people who had even interacted with him. So several hours after that, I made calls to every facility that was available in Omaha. I had some resources previously. I was doing some furious Googling, and every single one of them told me that unfortunately, because he is not able to ambulate, he can't move around, he can't go to the bathroom by himself, they would not accept him. Their facilities are very limited in the things that they can do and the staff that they have, and there was no way that they could help him. One of them actually suggested that I let him get arrested so that he would have somewhere safe to stay for the night. So I did not take no for an answer. I badgered Open Door Mission and their manager. They agreed to take him for the night and get him in touch with the caseworker the next day. But this really opened my eyes to the systemic issue that Omaha has we do have a lot of resources for people who are homeless here. They're not all great, but we have a lot of them. Unfortunately, there is not those resources available if that person suffers from a mental or physical disability that does not allow them to take care of themselves in a way that they are expected. So for our presentation, we are proposing a program that would help bridge this gap specifically for disabled homeless people. Okay, so Santa Francis, we have quite a few homeless shelters in the area, but Santa Francis is the big one. These are a list of the requirements to enter the shelter. It's pretty standard. You have to have your age, you can't be in a coma, things like that. But one of the most restrictive and exclusive rules that they have is that you have to be independent in daily living activities, be able to manage your own time, medication, communicate effectively, and be completely aware of your surroundings. Unfortunately, situations where people may become homeless, these things do affect that. They're not able to hold a job or manage their time or take care of themselves properly. So by having rules like this, while it may benefit the facility because of lack of staff or whatever other reasons, it does prevent a lot of people from getting the care that they need. Manifest. Okay, so St. Francis a few years ago did actually develop a program, Santa Francis. They called it the Medical Respite Program. It is designed so that when people are discharged from a hospital, their doctors can help them apply to this program, and it's meant to be an a medium between a hospital and an emergency shelter. However, these have the exact same roles as the rest of the Santa Francis facilities, in that they have to be completely able to take care of themselves and all their functions and able to walk without mobility aids. So when this program started the first few months, 49 people were referred from hospitals. Only 11 were accepted, which is less than 25%. In the research article that I was reading, or it's more of like a formative article, they stated that it was because these applicants needed a more intense level of care than they could provide. So if you can't get into a shelter, what are your options? Well, other than incarceration, which is what the predominant method is, you die. So this is a study from California. Deaths of despair specifically refer to deaths by suicide, deaths due to drug addiction, or alcohol illness caused by alcohol addiction. Homeless people are 9 times more likely to suffer from deaths of despair than the general population. They're also significantly more likely to be victims of violent crimes. 19% of all reported deaths in a 10-year period in California for homeless individuals were due to completely preventable illnesses. and injuries that they did not receive care for. In addition, homeless people were dying 20 years before, on average, the general population. So I think 63 was the average age of someone who's homeless, and the average homeless person is between 50 and 65. So what does this look like in Omaha? There is a group called Sync Health. They do a lot of health data, and they looked at 450 homeless people from counties in Nebraska and Iowa. This is a very small fraction of the actual homeless people that exist in this area. They found that of those 450 people, on average per month, 246 of them visited emergency departments. And that same study, specifically for Nebraska, per person, each person had 4.5 consecutive hospital visits. So this means within 30 days of being discharged, they immediately were readmitted. So out of everyone that they studied as part of this group, people were just continually admitted and discharged because they had nowhere else to go. So what is the solution to this? Well, so thankfully, permanent supportive housing already exists. It is a type of program specifically designed for disabled individuals. It is a form of permanent housing, but it also offers group therapy, like work, like when you are working on work skills, also healthcare and all different forms of rehab. The problem is participants eligible for permanent supportive housing, meaning that they have a disability and are homeless, have to be referred to by local shelters. So if we're looking at these two issues together, of you need shelters to get into permanent supportive housing, but you can't get into shelters because you don't have permanent supportive housing, there's a complete collapse of the system where disabled people are just left on the street to be arrested or die. So the biggest part of the project that we're proposing is offering that bridge from emergency shelter to permanent supportive housing and setting them up for success. The biggest opposition to this is definitely going to be funding. So to expand more on that is Glo.
Alright, so as Mel stated, one of the big oppositions for this program and for resolving this issue is the funding throughout it, and majority of the funding comes through grants and donations, directly from federal grants, as Department of Housing and Urban Development, that's an example, or through direct donations from people, anybody here can donate to help. Sienna France is one of the bigger programs. Most of their money is from grants and donations, and I'd say it covers about over $10 million a year, annually, and that is where most of their money comes from, and that's how they're supported throughout the program. And the Nebraska Senator Merv Wright, he estimated that respite centers cost about $200 a day comparatively to $2,000 a day for a hospital visit. And if you think about that in even in small portions, if there is a few hundred people going to the hospital each day a few days throughout the month, then it could add up a lot. As you can see, $2,000 a day is a lot of money, and that can equate to hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to hospital expenses, rather than contributing to programs that could actually directly help these people who don't have the resources they may need or aren't being helped the way that they specifically need. And most people who do get admitted into these hospitals in these situations do end up just getting released, like Mel said, same day, or they don't get the exact care that they do need, and they just end up right back in their same situation. And there was a Nebraska Legislative Bill 905 that was just passed this past year in 2023, and it basically just stated that it was a medical waiver that you could apply for a federal grant that would basically, if it was approved, would cover 90% of the cost for these respite centers. So it would definitely be that covers most of the cost for that. So the respite centers, it not only does it provide the exact resources and help that these specific individuals need, but it would be able to be covered majority by the government and not have to be included in taxes or anything like that for people like us. And there are there is currently 126 million in untapped federal funds to help low-income families that may be struggling or like may be on their way to being in like a not so great situation. And that was as of this past year, so it probably did go up. And a big part of that is there is so much funding, like there is so much to think about and consider when it comes to the funding, like the type of facilities and the equipment and the support and like staffing and stuff like that. There's a lot to think about, so that's a big part of why it's so hard for them to fund exactly, help these people and fund the programs exactly how they need to be. And a lot of that money ends up just sitting there. It's kind of just like they kind of have it as like a backup plan, like to help if like worst comes to worst. But most of that money, all that money is meant to help these low income families or people who are in need or struggle and may need more support. And that is just one of the many biases that go into this, why it's so hard to fund programs or even support programs like this. And Manifest will talk about the rest of the biases that go into this.
Thank you, Khalil. Thank you, Mel. Actually, Mel is the one who brought it to our attention. We were going to share about the importance of education and how it's going to change our lives and change our world. Mel had a personal experience that she shared with you. I'm currently working with 2 to 3 different personal experiences of real life individuals who are going through this. So thank you guys for giving us your time and your attention. Behind then it says why this matters. Why is this important? So I'm going to kind of pull on your heartstrings a little bit, because it's usually our social phobias, our social discriminations and prejudices is really why homeless people really don't get the attention that they deserve. They're human beings like we're human beings. So if we had a facility, as Mel was sharing, that we got a facility over here that they can go to, but then they need this to get into this. But this will not take this. So some kind of way we need to bridge this gap. Does that make sense? So our facility does that. And so as you can actually hit the next slide for me. As I begin to go back one more. I don't want you guys to miss this. If you look at these people in this photo, I picked this on purpose because when I saw it, it kind of looked like my next door neighbor. Doesn't it? It kind of looks like people that would not be homeless. So, but the tornado just hit and we had like 6 tornadoes hit. It might not even be in my control that I end up homeless. Some of them abused in the tornado, because if you are hospitalized from the tornado, you cannot take care of yourself. So let's get some facts. Who's falling through the cracks? Because of personal experience in my life, I already know statistically that it's going to be African American males and Hispanic males. It's just the reality of our country. But the sad statistic that I'm finding out, that Mel pointed out to me, is that some of these are women with children. When I first started this project, I'm looking at the males that I'm working with, because prior incarceration, coming out of the VA, trying to transition into society without the adequate resources. So if here you can see that just a little bit more, excluding the incarceration stats, you can see kind of the percentages of the people, veterans make up 8%, but people with disabilities, 43% that need our help. Next slide. So now to bring my good friend, Mr. Ben, he's going to be sharing about kind of what this facility would entail and what it's going to look like as we employ you for your support.
Thank you, Manifest. So as Mel said earlier in the presentation, the shelters in the Omaha metro area cannot take care of most of these disabled individuals. Shelters such as Sienna Francis and Open Door Mission do not have the accessibility and staff to be able to take care of them. Now, with such a high rate of disabled and mentally ill homeless individuals in the city of Omaha, how can these people get any help? That is where our program comes in to stop those who are both disabled and homeless from falling through the cracks. Acting as a short-term emergency shelter for the homeless, our top priority would be to provide housing and care for these individuals who may not be able to do it themselves. Our shelter would have the resources that they would need during the temporary stay, like facility features including inclusive restrooms equipped with easily accessible showers and toilets that ensure the restrooms are user-friendly for both handicapped and bariatric individuals. The facility would also contain adoptable rooms that can accommodate different furniture configurations. Having this kind of flexibility would allow the program to cater to residents of varying sizes, disabilities, and potential mental health conditions. So overall, our shelters and animate features would make it an extremely inclusive place. And now the shelter can't run without the qualified staff. So to run this program, it will need to have administrative staff for tasks such as communication and organization. It will need security in order to keep both the staff and residents safe. And having CNAs for the shelter is vital. Certified nursing assistants can provide the personalized support, which is similar to what residents would receive in assisted living facilities. CNAs can assist with daily tasks, monitoring vitals, and help with personal care. It will need registered nurses to help manage the CNAs and provide a more complex level of support for the residents' health. It will have caseworkers who are essential for connecting residents with resources. Through legal identification to advocacy, these caseworkers will help guide individuals along the way. And on top of this, the shelter will also consist of therapists as well. Which brings me to the next portion of the program, covering the community aspect. Utilizing the therapists the program has, it will offer different forms of therapy for the residents to participate in. This can be cognitive behavioral therapy, art therapy, music therapy, or group therapy. Individuals will also be able to attend life skill classes to develop problem-solving skills, financial skills, and other possible skills for the future. The life skill classes allow a more hands-on approach to developing these important things. And to keep this shelter as community-friendly as possible, we will also give transportation to individuals to religious and social activities to help foster better connections and prevent isolation. And throughout these residents' stay, the caseworkers will work with them to obtain government resources to transition individuals to a more permanent housing solution. The shelter takes responsibility for helping them get into nursing homes, permanent supportive housing, and assisted living. So not only does this shelter provide a roof over their heads, but this program bridges the gap between homeless to permanent housing. So after giving an understanding of our shelter, Will is here to give a better description of the resources the program will be able to obtain.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So Ben discussed case managers, and that's kind of part of what this is about. So this graphic right here shows the social determinants of health. Essentially, they are 5 aspects of just like their resources, essentially. And when a homeless person enters this program, well, before that, a homeless person without an ID does not have access to these things. Almost certain, like that's almost certain. So when they do enter this program, the first thing that we would do is help them get legal identification. Once they get that, all of these things are accessible to them. So the first thing they would start with, which is probably the most important in my opinion, would be healthcare. They can apply for Medicaid. Medicaid, Medicare, probably some veteran benefits. Yes. They just have access to all kinds of healthcare, including vision, dental care, mental health and rehab too for whatever. Housing, Ben covered that. Permanent housing for those people, and within a social context, group therapy, such as Alcoholics Anonymous, or there's veteran programs out there for those people, and just introducing them into a community where they belong. Economic stability, just like opening a bank account, you can't really do that without an ID. Maybe they had a bank account in the past that they could access now. Getting a job, they can help. Case managers would help out with that. With education, there's a lot of resources out there that we ourselves can already access. Financial aid, scholarships and grants, and just getting your GED, all of those things. So in short, the entire point of this program is just giving homeless people the resources that they need, that we're able to access these on our own, and and they absolutely deserve the same privilege. And that's, yeah. So, no, sorry.
Public, I want to keep it from feeling abrupt.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'd like to hand the conclusion over to Manifest, because that's.
So, thank you guys for giving us your attention to bring to awareness something that is near and dear to my heart. I love this because this shows how we all can do something. If we can't do it all collectively, we can all play our parts. So you can like us by sending us financial support. That always helps. But that's only a small part of what these people need. You can love us by volunteering your time. You can give money back, but you can't get your time back. So when you personally go and give your time to help somebody in need, that is something that's going to transcend that life and change that life for a lifetime, rather than just giving them a few dollars if you see them on the corner. You can subscribe, because you might not be able to help us personally, but you might know people in your circle who has a passion for making this a reality. So you can connect us so that way we can get this off the ground and running. And finally, simply word of mouth, just bringing awareness. There's so many things that's going on in society. Why can't this be a topic of real conversation? Thank you for having us, and time.